Hi everyone, welcome to this weekend update video. It's a beautiful day today, as it was yesterday. It's not really warm, it was about 14 or 15 degrees yesterday. I think it's going to be similar today here in Oxfordshire, but it is starting to look like spring is arriving, and which is great. It hasn't been this bright sunshine for quite some time. We had really cold weather here a couple of weeks ago, it got down to sort of -6, -7 overnight, but all that has completely changed now. And what also has happened is my Diamond X300 antenna, which I thought had stopped working several months ago when one of the club members tried to contact me. I couldn't hear him and he couldn't hear me. I don't know why, but yesterday or the day before, I decided to plug my antenna analyzer into the feed cable to check the SWR, and the match was 1.1 to 1. So I plugged it back into the radio and spoke to M0UHF, and all is good again. I don't know what the problem was. The cable certainly looks fine, and now I'm starting to question myself as to whether it was ever any problem with it, and whether I had the wrong antenna or the wrong cable plugged into the back of the radio. You sort of start to question yourself after several months has gone by. So anyway, the good news is I'm back on 2 meters and 70 sems, and Jeff was copying me, I can't remember, 40 or 60 over with 30 watts, so that's great. And my other antennas are still up. G5RV, which is a little bit low slung these days. The G5RV is being completely blown away by my end-fed wire, and whilst I sort of understand why that might be the case, the delta in performance in terms of how well I'm heard and what I'm hearing is so vast now. I'm wondering whether, not that there's something wrong with it, but whether there's something I can do to improve it. I mean, it's a bit lower than the end-fed wire, but I mean, other than that, there's not really anything that can go wrong. I was going to short the feeder out and convert it into a Marconi T. In fact, someone else in the club is planning to do exactly the same thing with theirs. It hasn't really felt like a good move getting out into the garden for the past few months because the weather's been so terrible. I've literally only been out there when an antenna's sort of fallen over. I mean, the Diamond antenna blew over in the wind, but luckily its fall was cushioned by the G5RV, and my end-fed wire collapsed at one point, and that was also laying across the G5RV, and here I am questioning the performance of the G5RV. Silly me. So yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, but one thing's for sure, this past winter I have really not spent any time outside improving my antennas in the way that other club members are. I mean, Jeff M0UHF, he's literally spends half his life on his roof, come rain or shine, wind or good weather. He devotes a lot of time and effort into his antennas, and that probably explains why he's generally copied better than I am. My antennas are basically a bit of a lash up, and I'm planning to, now that I've got a full license and obviously I can employ the maximum amount of power should I so wish to do so, I do need to do something about my antennas. And when the weather is significantly better, I'm thinking about pulling them all down and putting them back up again properly. So and then we'll see if that makes a difference. I mean, the other thing I've got, of course, is the BLA 350, which at the moment I can't use because my I'm still using window jumpers, which don't work. When you get above 150 watts, they get a bit warm, so that's not appropriate. And I've still got this idea to buy a 200-watt radio, the TS480HX or something similar. I still like the idea of doing that, even though it's only half an S point. I still like to have a bit of extra power as and when needed. But so there you go. So what a beautiful day. And here I am in the shack. And first thing I want to talk about, or maybe that's the second thing I want to talk about, is this, the Malahit DSP. This was very kindly loaned to me, as I said last week, by a gentleman, a Shortwave listener, who provides signal reports for our nets on a Friday evening. And This is the receiver that he uses with a mag loop, and it was brought to my attention when I made the comment about this originally being a Russian-built sort of low-volume device being made in China, and brought to my attention that it was a Chinese clone of the original Russian Malahit radio. And so this was brought to my attention, and so I felt compelled to make the comment that cloning electronic devices isn't something that I personally agree with, particularly when it's devices that are being cloned that are currently in manufacturing with the actual, with the original manufacturer, because all it really does is just damage a legitimate business. So I don't agree with it. Saying that, if it's a device that's no longer in manufacture and it gives the the ham radio population an opportunity to buy something, a very good device that much more cheaply, then that's fine. But ultimately, if Chinese clones of existing devices that are currently in manufacture, it just damages legitimate businesses, and I wanted to make that point. Notwithstanding that, it was very, very kind of the gentleman to loan me his spare device, but because of the whole situation with it being a clone and potentially damaging another business, I probably won't be uploading any videos, of it in operation. What's interesting is that I've also subsequently learnt that the original device, which is a Russian-built unit, is allegedly a clone of an official SDR Play RSP product, possibly the RSP 1A, I don't know, but so the original version of this, what you consider to be the proper version of this, the Russian product built in low volume, is itself a clone of an SDR Play product, which again is something that I wouldn't necessarily agree with if it's true. But that's what I'm hearing. And so what we actually have here is a clone of a clone, and so yeah, that almost caused well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it depends on your point of view. My point of view is simple, because I run a manufacturing company myself. Is that in no way will I ever condone copying anyone's IP, design, etc. It's just you just don't do it, and I would never do it. I'd never allow anyone in my company to be involved in that. It's just something that we would never do. I don't condone it, so it just makes it very difficult for me to do anything with regard to advertising the features or the performance of this particular receiver, because not only is it a clone of another device, it's a clone of a device that itself is a clone with an SDR Play product, allegedly, and I have a very good relationship with SDR Play and John Hudson, etc. They're a fantastic company. The technology that John and his team have brought to the radio hobbyist market and ham radio fraternity is immense, probably immeasurable. The performance that those guys are bringing for at the price point, performance as a function of price, they're right up there with the very best, and they may be the best. So, and it certainly would not be fair for any company to be damaging all the good work that they do for the hobby in the long run. It's probably not, it's going to be damaging. So I just wanted to make that point with that. And leading on from that is something similar. I contacted Alexander in Belarus about the Belka DX, and this is a Belka DX radio that arrived from Belarus via Minsk, I believe. I'm not going to unbox it now because there'll be a separate unboxing video, but I managed to get a pretty good deal on this radio, and because compared to the cost of something like, the Texan PL 990, which, doesn't seem to have much in terms of advanced performance over the 880, it's selling for, $300 or $400 or whatever it is. This is so cheap, and this is the size of a matchbox, and from some of the reviews I've read, it looked to me like performance as a function of price for this particular little radio looked very, very good indeed. So I thought it was worth a punt. So that's the Belka DX, and there'll be a separate unboxing video on that probably next week. I don't think there's going to be much to unbox, to be honest with you, but what I'll do is when I do the unboxing, I'll fire it up as well and just have a quick spin through it. So looking forward to that, and what a potentially a great little device for taking out on a DXpedition, etc. So, but this is the real McCoy. This is the real thing. This isn't a clone. This is an actual device built by the actual manufacturer. So there you go. What else am I doing? So I'm just monitoring actually the noise floor at my QTH on 8.5 megahertz. And the reason I'm doing that, which seems a bit odd, I suppose, is because since last week, one of the club members, he put a message on our IO group to say that a lump of noise had appeared from 8.5 to 12.5 megahertz, and could anyone else see it? And this guy lives down near the Diamond Light source in Chiltern, and so I got onto my, and he sent a couple of images, and I got onto my SDR, the ELAD, and there it was. What's interesting is that it was actually a very defined lump up to 12. It's changed. The profile of the noise has changed. It's still there, but it's not so defined. But it is here at 8.5 megahertz, and so I'm just keeping a watching brief on that. It doesn't really affect us very much as a club, but you know, if you're DXing and you want to access stations, broadcast stations between those two frequencies, it makes a big difference. Look at my noise floor right now is minus 120 dBs, but it's minus 110 dBs above 8.5 megahertz. And if I click through, it drops down to minus 120 again at 12.5. If I go back up to 11.5, you see it's about 100, minus 115, 107, about minus 112. So you can see that it's got a lump now at 8.5, and it gradually reduces down to 12, so 12.5. So there you go. So I'm just going to monitor that. I'm actually monitoring 145.4125 megahertz on 2 meters because my friend Jeff is mobile on 2 meters today, and he wanted a test. So I'm going to wait for him to. He's going to call me potentially just before 12 o'clock. So and this is now possible, of course, because for whatever reason, my Diamond X300 antenna is working again, so that's good news. And then finally, I finished writing the article for Radio User magazine for this new receiver, and I hope I've got the balance about right, to be honest with you. I think ultimately, you have to be honest, and and even though it might be helpful to the magazine, to the editor, whoever, and these are all very good people, in the end, I think you've just got to tell it as it is, and that's basically what I've done. So I'm hoping that I've got the balance right, and that I've done the right thing, because basically this receiver is very expensive, but it's very, very capable in certain respects. But if you're the average Joe shortwave listener, some of the stuff it's capable of is not going to be any use to you at all, basically, and that's the point. In terms of fundamentally what that radio can do, there's very little difference between what it can do and what its predecessor could do, or any other particular type of radio. So anyway, the article's done. I've sent it off, and I hope they like it, and I hope I've got the balance quite right. I've made the point. There's no doubt that it's certainly a feat of engineering, but which is fair enough, as it's very expensive. But in terms of ultimately, you know, what you're going to hear, that is really defined by, you know, its ultimate sensitivity and selectivity. And the dynamic range of that particular radio is very, very similar, I think, if not almost identical to, as I said, to its predecessor. But anyway, you know, nevertheless, we'll see what happens. But I'm sure it'll all be fine. And Radio User Magazine, we should support that. It's one of the few publications, the remaining, that supports our hobby. It's a fantastic magazine. The editor, Georg, absolutely great guy, brilliant. He's just a radio guy. He's got radio in his blood, and just like the rest of us, and the perfect guy to be editor of that magazine. I like him very much indeed. He's a really, really good guy. And we should support that magazine, as I think I've said probably several times in the past. Anyway, there you go. That's it from the shack. Have a great weekend. I wish you all good DX. Keep safe. Who knows? Maybe we're finally getting to the end of this nightmare pandemic, and you know, hopefully there are better times ahead. I think 17 million people in this country now have been vaccinated. So you know, there's no doubt that everything we do in this UK is measured in superlatives. We've got the worst death rate, but but by far the best vaccine rate. Vaccine kind of take up rate. So you know, I don't know why that is, but better to be in. Well, what was a nightmare now just seems to be turning into a situation which hopefully is recoverable. So in the meantime, keep safe in the shack, and I hope you have fun this weekend, listening to radio, getting on the air, whatever you might be doing, experimenting with antennas. Have a good time, and I'll no doubt speak to some of you soon via the comments on the YouTube channel. So have a great weekend, and 73. Thanks for watching.